and welcome back to the online learning session. Today we'll be moving ahead in chapter 2, Physical Features of India. Let us quickly see the topics to be covered in this lesson. Number 1, the middle lesser Himalayas or Himachal. Number 2, the outer Himalayas or Shivaliks. Number 3, the Purvanchal. Number 4, the northern plains of India. And number 5, the peninsular plateau. Though in the topics 4 and 5 we will only go through a brief introduction. Students, we have already learnt the greater Himalayas. Now we are moving southwards. Like, consider this to be the greater Himalayas, this to be the middle Himalayas or the lesser Himalayas, and this to be the outer Himalayas. So if we number them as 1, 2 and 3, so we have learnt that this one is, number 1 is greater Himalayas. Now we are descending southwards. Clear? So this range which we are going to study right now between 1 and 3 is known as the lesser Himalaya. So let us begin learning. The range lying to the south of the Himadri forms the most rugged mountain system and is known as Himachal or Lesser Himalayas. As we have already seen that it lies south of the Himadri. Now second, we see the ranges are mainly composed of highly compressed and altered rocks. You can also see that there is a huge mass of the greater Himalayas lying right above the lesser Himalayas. So this could also be one of the possible reasons for the rocks to be compressed and altered. Now in the point 3 we see that the altitude varies between 3700 and 4500 meters. In one of the previous lessons we have learned that the average height is 4000 meters while the average width is of 50 kilometers. Now let us try to learn the concept through this diagram. As you can see, students, here this one is greater Himalayas. Let us number these sections. This is number 1. Let us number this section as 2 and this to be 3. So we have learned that this one is greater Himalayas. So as we keep on descending southwards, as we reach the ranges where the ranges have a height of 4000 meters, so the zone between 1 and 3 is known as the middle Himalayas or the lesser Himalayas. Clear? Now let us try to learn by drawing the altitude. So students, we see that this is the altitude of the greater Himalayas from the mean sea level. Clear? Now as we descend southwards we come to this level. So this level will become 4000 meters. The ranges in this level will have an average height of 4000 meters, where we have already studied that the average height of the ranges of the greater Himalayas is 6000 meters. Clear? And thereafter in the range 3 we will have Shivaliks. Okay. One another diagram, students. So we have seen that this is the range of the greater Himalayas, and as we descend southwards we come to ranges of the middle Himalayas. From here, as you can see, there are different ranges of the Himalayas. When we move further southeastwards we come to the Nepal Himalayas and therefore the Purvanchal Himalayas in Assam further east. Again, in the diagram provided in your book, in the map provided in your book, we see this region, the region number 1 here, to be the region of the greater Himalayas, and as we descend southwards we come here, we find the middle Himalayas. Okay. Now a few more important characteristics of the lesser Himalayas or Himachal. Let us try to go through them. Number 1 says the Pir Panjal range forms the longest and the most important range. Students, in point number 1 we see that we have started learning about the ranges, the peaks of the middle Himalayas or the lesser Himalayas. So here in the zone of the greater Himalayas, no need to find all these peaks. Please come to this map. We will try to understand the ranges with the help of this map. Clear? So in the zone 1, in the zone of the greater Himalayas, we don't need to find anything because we are studying the lesser Himalayas. So keep descending southwards, and as you keep descending southwards, you find your Pir Panjal range, and almost adjacent to that lies the Dhauladhar range, which is in their point 2. The Dhauladhar and the Mahabharat ranges are also prominent ones. This range consists of the famous valley of Kashmir, the Kangra and Kullu valley in Himachal Pradesh. Now you can easily figure out, students, that why the state is named as Himachal Pradesh. Okay, exactly because of the lesser Himalayas, the Himachal. Now one very important characteristic of this region is that this region has well-known hill stations of India. Now one question here goes for you, students. You will tell me that what are the hill stations found in this range. Clear? Now one more important aspect of the learning, we see that one direct question can be, in fact two questions can be raised from this point, such as number 1, which is the longest range of the lesser Himalayas, and number 2, which is the most important range of the lesser Himalayas. So you also see, students, while you go through the text of the chapter, you also see that what are the possible questions which can be framed from any section of the text. Second, we see that name some more prominent ranges of the lesser Himalaya. Clear? Third, we see where is Kashmir Valley, Kangra Valley and Kullu Valley. Fourth, as I have already asked, name some important hill stations found in the lesser Himalayas. Students, for more clarity, will refer to one other map, and this range is the range of the greater Himalayas. Let us keep on descending. Now on coming southwards, here we find the Kashmir Valley, which is a part of the lesser Himalayas. We keep on descending southwards, we find the Pir Panjal range. Almost adjacent is seen the Dhauladhar range. So this is how we are going to study about all these kinds of mountain ranges. Students, please make this a habit of utilizing maps and diagrams. Let us move forward. Now we come to the other section of the Himalayas, the third one, which is known as the outer Himalayas or the Shivaliks. Clear? So let us see, in the point 1 we see that the outermost range of the Himalayas is known as Shivaliks. They extend over a width of 10 to 15 kilometers and have an altitude varying between 900 to 1100 meters. Now let us get back first of all. When we come to this diagram, students, we have already seen the greater Himalayas and the lesser Himalayas. Now as we keep on descending southwards, we find the outer Himalayas right here, or the Shivaliks. So it's just about descending southwards, and you can see easily that the altitude of this range is lesser to that of the middle Himalayas, which is again in turn lesser to that of the greater Himalayas. So this is the altitude of the greater Himalayas, this is the altitude of the lesser Himalayas, and this is the altitude of the outer Himalayas or the Shivaliks. So here you can easily see that there are different kinds of ranges like this and this. So you can easily see that the altitude of all these ranges is varying. That is what we have learned here right now, that the altitude of this ranges vary between 900 and 1100 meters. Clear? Now in point number 2 we see that composed of unconsolidated sediments, these valleys are covered with thick gravel and alluvium. Now students, here in the outer Himalayas or Shivaliks, we see that the sediments are not consolidated. It means they are not very much compressed. There is a lesser force of attraction among the particles. Here we see one of the important processes of the rivers, that is known as deposition. So in the greater Himalayas, the cutting of rocks takes place, which also takes place in the middle Himalayas, and while rivers keep on flowing from the greater Himalayas through the lesser Himalayas to the outer Himalayas and the Shivaliks, we see that the altitude of the outer Himalayas is lesser than those of the Greater Himalayas and the Middle Himalayas. Therefore, these unconsolidated sediments cover as gravel and alluvium. In the point number 3, we see that the longitudinal valley lying between Lesser Himalaya and the Shivaliks are known as dunes. Now there are some longitudinal valleys lying between the Lesser Himalayas and the Shivaliks, and they are known as dunes. In the point 4, we see some of the famous dunes. You are already aware of the Dehradun, the Kotli Dun, the Patli Dun. These three are just a few important examples of the dunes. So again, students, if we see point number 1, point number 2, point number 3 and point number 4, one question from each of these points can be easily raised, and a total of 4 questions per slide, just related to the outer Himalayas as far as the theory is concerned. So first, what do we see? What is the average width of the outer Himalayas range? Second, we see what is the altitude variation of the outer Himalayas. Second, we see that which kinds of sediments are these mountain ranges composed of. Third, we see what are known as dunes, and fourth, we see mention some famous examples of dunes. Students, now that we have studied the divisions of the Himalayas, we will see the regional division of the Himalayas. We will see that according to the regions how the Himalayas are named. If you remember the first lesson related to the topic of the Himalayas, we had discussed that in the lessons coming in the future we will see that how these mountain ranges are named regionally. So let us begin our learning. In the point 1, we see that besides these longitudinal divisions, the Himalayas have been divided on the basis of regions from west to east. Now here's a direction which says from west to east. Okay, we'll also go to map for a clear understanding of this topic. Second, we see that these divisions have been demarcated by river valleys. Now one of the important aspects of this regional division of the Himalayas topic is the river valleys. Now river valleys will play an important part in the understanding of this concept. Now we go to third, and we see the part of the Himalayas lying between Indus and Satluj. Students, connect this to point number 2. We have already seen that these regional divisions are demarcated by river valleys. So river valleys will play an important role. Now we see the river valley of the Indus and Satluj. Let us read the point again. The part of the Himalayas lying between the Indus and the Satluj has been traditionally known as Punjab Himalaya, but it is also regionally known as Kashmir and Himachal Himalaya from east to west respectively. Okay, now this was the first regional division of the Himalaya, demarcated by the river valleys of Indus and Satluj, also known as Kashmir and Himachal Himalayas. Now the second one which we are going to see is the part of Himalayas lying between the Satluj and Kali rivers. Now the Satluj and Kali rivers, the two river basins, the two river valleys found here are Kali and Satluj. Now the Himalayas which lie between these river valleys is known as Kumaon Himalayas. Okay, now we have another part in the point 3. What do we see here? The Kali and Teesta rivers. Okay, the Kali and Teesta rivers demarcate the Nepal Himalayas, and the part lying between Teesta and the Dihang rivers is known as Assam Himalayas. Which river is, by the way, known as Dihang? Students, you should know this, that Brahmaputra is known by the name of Dihang as it enters Arunachal Pradesh. Clear? So students, in this slide we saw that there is a regional division of the Himalayas as well, and one of the most important points is the river valleys, which plays a very important role in the demarcation of these regional divisions of the Himalayas. The first division we saw was the Punjab Himalayas, demarcated by the river valleys of Indus and Satluj. Second, which we saw, was the Kumaon Himalayas, demarcated by the river valleys of the Satluj and Kali rivers. third, we saw the Kali and Teesta rivers demarcating the Nepal Himalayas, and fourth, we saw the Teesta and the Dihang rivers demarcating the Assam Himalayas. So four different regional divisions we saw, which is related to the Himalayas. Now there is a map also which is related to this concept. So this brings us to this map, and this map, if you can see here, we can see the Indus and the Satluj river very clearly. We see the Indus and the Satluj river, and between these two river basins there is a valley, and these two river valleys demarcate the Punjab Himalaya. After that, we saw the Satluj and the Kali river. See, here is the Kali river and here is the Satluj. So between these two river valleys lies the Kumaon Himalayas. Clear? Next, what do we see? We see the Kali and the Teesta river. Okay, see, this is the Teesta river and this is the Kali river. Now the Kali and the Teesta river demarcates the Nepal Himalayas. So this was the first, this to be second, this is the third, and the Teesta and the Dihang river. By the way, Brahmaputra in Arunachal Pradesh is locally named by the name of Dihang. So the Teesta and the Dihang river. Now we are going to learn about the Purvanchal Himalayas. Let us start learning. The Brahmaputra marks the easternmost boundary of the Himalayas. Now this river Brahmaputra marks the easternmost boundary of the Himalayas. Beyond the Dihang Gorge, the Himalayas bend sharply to the south and spread along the eastern boundary of India. They are known as the Purvanchal, or the eastern hills and mountains. Students, let us consider this to be the northeastern part of India, to be like this, and beyond Dihang Gorge we see the Himalayas bend sharply southwards and they spread along the eastern boundary of India like this. Okay, they bend sharply to the south and they actually are extending, spreading to the eastern boundaries of India like this. Okay, where they are known as Purvanchal. Now we see that the hills running through the northeastern states are mostly composed of strong sandstones, which are actually sedimentary rocks. So we also get to know that in this region we will be finding sedimentary rocks. Fourth, we see that covered with dense forest, they mostly run as parallel ranges and valleys. Now fifth important point is the Purvanchal comprises the Patkai Hills, the Naga Hills, the Manipur Hills and the Mizo Hills. Students, do you find anything which you already know in the point 5? Yes, the Naga Hills, we see the Nagaland, the Manipur Hills, we see Manipur, and in the Mizo Hills we will find which state of India? Yes, Mizoram. So let us go to this map and we see that as we descend to this kind of range like this, so the range of the Himalayas beyond the Dihang Gorge turns sharply to the south and extends to the eastern boundary of India. Okay, students, now here you can easily see that as the Himalayas, if it's not visible, just see here, it turns like this to the south, and since this is the eastern margin of India, so it then stretches along the eastern boundaries of India. Here, as you can see, you can find the Patkai Hills known as Patkai Bum, then we find the Naga Hills, then we find the Manipur Hills, and then we find here the Mizo Hills. You already know that states are also named after these hills, so these states are located in the hills itself, known as Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. Okay, so I hope that the concept of Purvanchal is clear. Now we move to our next topic, that is of the northern plains. Students, in this topic we will only go through a brief introduction. We'll only try to understand what do we actually mean by northern plains. Now that we have completed the topic of mountains, you should consolidate the concept related to the mountains, and this is a fresh beginning when we get into the plains. Now we have started other physical feature which is known as plain. Okay, So let us see the northern plains. As the name suggests, it is definitely situated in the north of India. Clear? Now let us go into its characteristics. Formed by the interplay of three major river systems, namely the Indus, the Ganga and Brahmaputra, famously known as the IGB. Clear? The Indus, Ganga and the Brahmaputra. Here you can see the Indus flowing like this. So this plain is formed by the Indus. Then here you can see the Ganga basin, and here you can see the Brahmaputra basin. So this is I, this is G, and this one is B. So basically these plains are formed by the interplay of three major river systems named as Indus, Ganga and Brahmaputra. Now this plain is formed of alluvial soil. Students, this is one of the most important points. When we come to all these Himalayan rivers, we see that they descend from a height, very high mountains. They descend from very high mountains. So along their drainage, they have huge amount of energy through which they cut across rocks of the mountains, which they then erode and deposit when they come to the plains. Now these sediments consolidate together to form alluvial soil, and they get deposited in the northern plains of India. So we can also say that all in the entire plain is made up of alluvial soil. It spreads over an area of 7 lakh square kilometers, and it is a densely populated physiographic division. We will peruse and we will try to find the reason for later, but first we see that it spreads over an area of 7 lakh square kilometers. In the east we can see right from Assam, it keeps on stretching towards northwest and it goes up to Punjab, also covering certain parts of Rajasthan and a major part of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and West Bengal. So basically these are known as the northern plains of India. So you can see that a huge area is covered by these plains. Now since alluvial soil is deposited by all these rivers and the plain entirely consists of the alluvial soil, this is a very agriculturally productive part of our country because the soil is very fertile. The alluvial soil, which comprises the entire northern plains of India, is very fertile. That's why we see a lot of agricultural activities going on in Uttar Pradesh, in Bihar and then in West Bengal. That's why we see that all these factors become an important reason for its dense population. So this is what we actually know by the northern plains. Now we'll move to the peninsular plateau and we'll have a look at the brief introduction. So let us see what do we actually mean by plateau. Students, as you have already learned that plateau is a tableland. Clear? Now in India we see this tableland to be composed of old crystalline, igneous and metamorphic rocks. Students, we have already learned about different physical features, and if we try and segregate all those features from this map, you can easily identify this tableland, the plateau, the peninsular plateau of India. So students, in this region from here like this, we have learnt Himalayas. Let this be our physical feature 1, so exclude this part, this is not a plateau. Then we come to learn another physical feature, and this was your a little bit of this region as well. So this was your region 2, this was your northern plain. Now students, if you are able to see the region which is left, now you can easily see the region which is left is this. Okay, so this is the region 3, the region 3 is known as the peninsular plateau. Now this is a tableland kind of a structure which is composed of old crystalline, igneous and metamorphic rocks. Now it was formed due to the breaking and drifting of the Gondwana land, making it a part of the oldest landmass. The third point, we see the plateau has broad shallow valleys and rounded hills. It has broad and shallow valleys. You can easily find these valleys here in parts of MP, valleys like Narmada valleys, okay, and the Tapi valleys. All these are kinds of rift valleys, and here we can see The plateau consists of two broad divisions, namely the Central Highlands and the Deccan Plateau. Students, if we try to divide the regions of this plateau, we'll be broadly dividing the regions into two halves, and this will be the Central Highlands and then the Deccan Plateau, the Southern Plateau. Okay. So here you will be able to see the Bundelkhand, the Bagelkhand, the Malwa Plateau, the Saurashtra Plateau, and further east you will find the Chota Nagpur Plateau here around Jharkhand, and then you come to this Deccan Plateau. Clear? As it is mentioned here, when we go to the topmost division of this, it's known as Eastern Highlands. Then here is the Central Highlands. Okay, students. Then we have the Eastern Ghats and the Western Ghats. So this was your introduction to the northern plains and the peninsular plateau. Please use maps and try to study by having a map alongside the textbook. Now students, will try to quickly summarize what we have learned in this lesson. So for that we'll need to go to our first topic quickly. Students, we started by learning that as we descend southwards from the greater Himalayas, we'll find another division of Himalayas known as the Middle Himalayas. It is also known as Himachal. Here you can see the altitude and the average width of the mountains. Okay. Now one of the important points was that one of the most important ranges are Pir Panchal ranges, the Dauladhar and the Mahabharat. And another important point was that this region comprises the most important hill stations of India. Plus it also has the Kangra Valley, the Kashmir Valley and the Kullu Valley. Here you can easily find out the Pir Panjal range and the Dauladhar range. When you start descending southwards of the greater Himalayas, you will also find the Kashmir Valley. Clear? Now we come to the outer Himalayas or the Shivaliks, and what did we learn there? We learned 4 points actually. So first of all, we learned that these ranges have an altitude of 900 and 1100 meters. Second, we learned that these valleys were covered with thick gravel and alluvium. Then we saw the longitudinal valleys between the lesser Himalayas and the Shivaliks known as dunes, and some famous dunes were Dehradun. Just tell me in the comment section that Dehradun is the capital of which state of India. Then we saw the Kotli Dun and the Patli Dun. Okay. Next we saw the regional divisions of the Himalayas, where we came to know about its regional classification, regional division from east and west, basically demarcated by the river valleys. Then we saw the Punjab Himalayas, demarcated by the river valleys of Indus and Satluj, locally also known as the Kashmir and Himachal Himalayas. Then we saw second Himalayas, the Kumaon Himalayas, to be demarcated by the river valleys of Satluj and Kali rivers. Then we saw the Kali and Tista river demarcating the Nepal Himalaya, and then we saw the Tista and the Hang rivers demarcating the Assam Himalayas. Here you can easily find all the ranges. Then we came to Purvanchal, and when we came to Purvanchal, we saw that beyond the Hang Gorge, the Himalayas bend like this, bend southwards, and basically they occupy the eastern boundaries of India known as Purvanchal or Eastern Hills and Mountains. Basically these are composed of sandstones which are actually sedimentary rocks. One of the most important points was that the Purvanchal comprises the Patkai Hills, the Naga Hills, the Manipur Hills and the Mizo Hills. All hills contain a state of India, which you saw here: the Patkai Boom, the Naga Hills, the Nagaland, the Manipur Hills, Manipur, the Mizo Hills, Mizoram. Clear? And the Manipur Plains can also be found down south. Then we came to learn about the northern plains of India, and we learnt in the first point that these plains are formed by the interplay of three major river systems named as the Indus, the Ganga and the Brahmaputra. The plain is entirely formed of alluvial soil. It spreads over an area of 7 lakh square kilometers, and the plain is densely populated and agriculturally productive. Students, if it is agriculturally productive, it is ought to be a densely populated region. It's quite natural. Next we saw the peninsular plateau. When we came to learn about the peninsular plateau, we saw that it is a tableland composed of old crystalline, igneous and metamorphic rocks formed due to breaking and drifting of the Gondwana land, which is one of the oldest landmass as well. Then we learned that it has broad and shallow valleys Here, if you will see the regions of MP, you will easily find the Narmada Valley, the Tapi Valley, etc. And it also has some rounded hills. One important characteristic was that it is divided into two broader divisions named as Central Highlands and the Deccan Plateau. Here you can easily find out the demarcations. This is the Central Highlands, this is the Eastern Highlands, clear, and this is your Deccan Plateau. Basically Deccan means south, so the plateau which you will find in the south will be known as the Deccan Plateau. And here in the Central Highlands you will also again find subdivisions like Bundelkhand, Baghelkhand, Saurashtra Plateau, Malwa Plateau, and further extending eastwards here as you come to Jharkhand you will find the Chota Nagpur Plateau. So that's it for today, students. I hope the lesson is clear, the concepts are clear. Do make notes, utilize, map efficiently. Thank you.